What are your thoughts on the Giants probably playing their best game of the season at just the right time?
The Giants had a phenomenal performance. I couldn't believe it. Offensively, they did not miss a beat. And one of the things that Kevin actually brought up last week that actually ended up being true was the fact that Vikings defense is not to be trusted with. And it showed up here in probably the worst time of the year. Daniel Jones and that Giants offense, they didn't miss a beat the entire day. Whether it was Daniel Jones running RPOs, passing out of the backfield, or Saquon Barkley running on the ground, they were just able to string along great drives, one after another. And the Vikings had no answer for it. And I know a lot of people kind of talk a little bit about the Giants not having the best wide receivers, and a lot of these guys are either inexperienced or they've been dealing with injuries at the wide receiving core this year. Well, as far as I see it, when it comes to what the Giants were able to do at the wide receiver position, they looked fine to me. They were able to get separation. They were able to convert on third down consistently throughout the day. And I mean, outside of the one drop by Darius Slayton in the fourth quarter, Kev, that's one of the worst drops you will ever see. I mean, he was wide open with open grass in front of him, and that would have, I mean, sealed the game. Would have gave him a first down. But I mean, outside of that one play, that Giants offense was humming the entire day. Now, to kick it to the Vikings showed that they could at least go toe to toe with the Giants from an offensive perspective because it was kind of a back and forth first half. I believe the Giants were up 17-14 at halftime, even though the Giants offense had looked better than the Vikings did in the first half. The fact that it was only a 3 point lead for the Giants going into halftime, I imagine the Vikings were actually feeling pretty good about that, knowing how effective that Giants offense was in the first half. But once again, just the Giants were able to string along drives in that second half. And the biggest thing to me with the Giants was they were able to cash in on third downs. They were able to convert at least like 2/3, if not 3/4, of their third down conversions, which was absolutely critical. And they even converted some big ones on fourth down as well. So the Giants executed at a high level the entire game. They didn't really make any costly mistakes outside of that one Darius Slayton drop the entire game. And when the defense needed to make plays, especially in the late stages of the fourth quarter, they were able to do that. The Vikings had two drives in the fourth quarter to be able to either tie the game or to eventually take the lead late in the fourth quarter. And the Giants shut them down defensively. The pass rushes were getting there. They were forcing Kirk Cousins off of his spot. And it just threw off the offense as a whole with Minnesota. So a great win for the Giants. The Giants advanced to the divisional round where they will play the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Giants and the Eagles have, obviously some really good history here. They've played each other twice a year because they're in the same division. But the last game of the year, these two teams played against each other, and the Giants kind of gave them a run for their money. So, and that was despite the fact that Daniel Jones was even starting in that game. So, it's going to be a fun weekend for both teams next week. But when it comes to the Giants, they proved me wrong. Daniel Jones was able to be the quarterback that I haven't really expected him to be up until this point in his career. He's usually been turnover prone, hasn't been able to make the plays that needed to be made late in games, but that did not happen yesterday. He stepped up to the plate and he executed at a high level. So, as far as I see it, I think the Giants are going to be a tough out. They've got a stingy defense. They have a great run game with Saquon Barkley. And Daniel Jones has been pretty solid this year from top to bottom. He's not turning the ball over, and he's relatively consistent at completing his passes. I think that's a good formula for them going up against the Eagles next week. So, Kev, the floor is yours.
I mean, Daniel Jones earned himself a payday with this game alone. This is the Giants' first playoff victory since 2012. That is 11 years ago. And Daniel Jones, his fifth year was not picked up by the Giants. I'm pretty sure that there are some reports going out that they are in discussions with both parties here in Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones for potential extensions. I think that with his dual threat capability of being able to escape pressure and at the same time being able to extend plays with his legs, I mean, he has, some tangibles right now that a lot of other quarterbacks don't. I know mobile quarterbacks aren't exactly the wave of the future, or should I say, aren't necessarily the ideal quarterback that you want because of just, history proves that mobile quarterbacks get injured. And I'm going to get into that in just a moment. But Daniel Jones did it in the air too. He had 11 incompletions as a whole, 24 of 35, over 300 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns. If Slayton doesn't drop that ball, I guarantee you that he potentially can go out there and score. It really depends on the outlook that you have. And then there was another situation where there was an illegal motion in the second half where Daniel Jones throws a strike in the end zone. He would have had 3 touchdowns. This game could have gotten out of hand really quickly to start off the second half. But it is what it is. The defenses for both teams until the Giants were really able to get into a rhythm in terms of putting pressure on Kirk Cousins. This was a game where it looked like it was just going to continue to go back and forth the entire game. But here we are, and Daniel Jones just beat out Kirk Cousins. I will give Kirk credit because he only had 8 incompletions, and he had 273 yards. I mean, his numbers look great, but in terms of the offensive line for the Vikings, which was the biggest point I wanted to bring, they looked awful. The pass rush of the Giants got to Kirk. It didn't result in sacks, but Kirk was hit 11 times. There were multiple situations where he was rushed, thrown off his feet. I mean, there was a crappy, horrible roughing the passer call on that final drive that actually extended what would have been a 3rd down or a 4th down, if I remember correctly, that I just thought was complete horse crap. But here we are, and it didn't make a difference. I mean, they didn't necessarily run the ball effectively either. Dalvin Cook only had 60 yards. They had 61 as a team. Kevin O'Connell was stuck, and he was one-dimensional. Throw. Almost 40 attempts for Kirk. You have to give a balance. You have to find a way to get into a rhythm and keep that Giants defense, whatever consistency they had, keep them off rhythm. And they weren't able to do that. I mean, TJ Hawkinson had an incredible game with 129 yards. He may have been the trade deadline acquisition player of the year because of how valuable he was while Irv Smith was out. And even while Irv Smith returned with a high ankle sprain, TJ got all the targets. I think the Giants defense did incredible against Justin Jefferson. 47 yards total. He had 7 catches. The Giants defense found a way to contain him in ways that made it work for them. He didn't beat them over the top, and he didn't gash them for any big plays, and they were able to bottle up Dalvin Cook. That is a successful formula for a team to go out there and win playoff football games. Didn't have any turnovers. They ran the ball effectively, and Brian Daboll, once again, just finds a way to lead this team into a place it hasn't been in over a decade. So kudos to the Giants, man. Shout out to all my boys, Santino, Evan, all the guys back home that are Giants fans. I mean, I know I predicted them to win. I had a gut feeling. I will say one thing, like I said at the beginning of the segment. This team gives me 2007 vibes. Sorry to Ducky, and I'm sorry to Kyle. They're winning at the right time, and the quarterback play, based off of this game, has taken a step in the right direction. This is the confidence booster a person like Daniel Jones needs to run it up in the playoffs. I know we're going to talk about the divisional game, and I'll break it down a little bit more. If Philly sleeps on New York, New York's going to the NFC Championship. Philly has a tendency to play down to a lot of their opponents. If you don't come out swinging for the fences, they're going to run away with this.